Okay. All right. Do we do our sound checks? Mic check.
Mic.
You have to turn the sound off on that thing. Oh man. There we go. All right. Woo.
Yeah.
Enjoy the time before people actually come in.
I know.
All right. A good old welcome back to the channel. I meant to put my melly on for. Actually, I'm gonna put my melly on. It's cold in here. I feel like that's true Colorado Trail.
Yeah. There's only 3 people watching.
Nice.
No more build up to let people come in while we hang out in the green room.
Not for this one.
Yeah.
Not for this one.
6 people. 5 people. We lost one. We were too boring.
Forgot to put this on. All right. Okay. It gets a little chilly down here. I saw Britney Spears posted a really racy picture on Instagram today. I was like, that's not going to help her cause.
Why wouldn't it help her cause?
I don't know. Doesn't she have to prove she's like, I don't know. All right.
Do you know how many people are like nuts out there and that are not in conservatorships?
It's true. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy Saturday.
Yeah. Amazing Saturday.
Amazing Saturday. It's beautiful here in the Midwest. We're going to talk all things Colorado Trail, our trip out there. I got some things to unpack.
Yep.
But first, what are we doing? The Eagle Rare?
Yeah. Let's get some.
That's a new. Did you get that bottle for me?
Yeah.
Where'd you get that?
I order them online.
Oh, right. When you did that. Yeah, that's right.
They're like $25 online.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
As you can see, so at the right here, right below me, we'll talk about that is the full GPX trace of our trip, and we'll kind of walk through it segment by segment. Did you get it?
Yeah, I got.
Did you hurt yourself?
I got a Charlie horse in my hand. You ever had that in your hand before?
No, you need some electrolytes.
I have. I've drank so many electrolytes today because I did a bunch of cardio.
This could be a healthy pour.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Are you feeling the altitude, like feeling the effects of being at sea level? I was. My resting heart rate dips back into down in the 40s.
I don't track that. And my watch probably has it.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, it's interesting. It's a good status. And that's actually something I want to get to. All right. Welcome, everybody.
Oh, hold on a second.
What?
Jacob Poucher in the chat says, not this Britney Spears crap again. Hey, we will talk about Britney Spears if we want to.
Jacob, I appreciate you are a fan of the channel, and I like that, but we get to talk about whatever we want. That's the point of the podcast. and if I want to talk about Britney Spears, I'm going to have a little comment about Britney Spears. But I promise to not talk about Britney Spears. Okay.
Anymore.
Done. Last comment. But check out the picture she posted. She looks good. She looks good. Okay. So there's probably like 5 or 6 things I want to unpack. Obviously, old Bryce and Scott are not here. We were going to do this debrief like right after we got off of the plane, but it just didn't happen. Bryce had to get home and Scott stayed out in Colorado. And Bryce is like, I don't want to do call-ins, so we can talk as much shit about Bryce as we want to because he didn't want to be here.
And our flights were delayed too. So we didn't get back till later.
So I think first we'll kind of talk through what we actually did, and then I have probably like 4 or 5 topics of conversation.
Yeah.
So as you can see on the screen, so that red line, that fully red line, and we'll talk about the total mileage, but that red line you're looking at is about 55 miles.
Yeah.
Because the total trip was about 60 because the very, very bottom, let's see if I can find my cursor. The very, very bottom right down here is we did a up and back of Mount Elbert. So that's 5 miles up and back. So it's
more than that.
No, it was like 4.75.
Up and back.
No, so 4.75 each way, correct? So 9.5.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is this entire red squiggly line is 55 miles, but our trip was 60 because there's 2 red lines here. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say. So like, don't look at the red line. I'm like, we did 60 60 miles, but the red line on the screen is only 55. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Wow, you're really confusing what you're getting there.
All right. So we'll walk through the trip and then we'll get to our talking points. So we started, you can see right up in this area.
In, was that Keystone?
No. So that
is it Copper or Keystone?
Is it? It's right here, right?
Yeah.
It's Copper Mountain. Yeah. So, real quick, the Colorado Trail. Actually, will you Google this? It's like 400 miles, 300,
478.
And it's broken down into segments.
Or I was not. Oh, sorry.
No, it's like between. I think it's around 400. So the Colorado. Just real quick, we'll give like a real quick because we didn't really do a ton of intro to this.
567.
Wow. Okay. So the Colorado Trail.
No,
that's not right. That's not right.
Okay. This one says 560. A premier backcountry 567 miles trail. That's not right. But this one says 488.
That sounds right. So it's 488 miles. If I zoom, I'm not going to zoom out on this map, but it starts in Denver and it goes to Durango. So Denver is like eastern Colorado and Durango is southwestern. So it like just goes through the state and it's split up into segments. So that's kind of how they track it. And then how many segments are there? It's right on there. It's like 20 some. It's good background when I tell you what we did. Yeah. So the 470 some miles is split up into, I think, 30 segments. And the thing to know is all the segments are not, I honestly don't know. I'm sure there's a reason why and how they dictated what segments were what, but the segments are not like evenly. You can have a 10-mile segment and you can have like a 30, 40-mile segment. So when I tell you we did, segments 8, 9, 10, it's not like linear. It's not like it was 20 miles in each segment. They can be like super sprawled out.
I honestly can't. I don't not quickly find out how many segments are, but we've got some.
If you just Google how many segments of the Colorado Trail, it doesn't come up.
Not easily. But we've got some Colorado Trail pros.
My guess is like 28. Well, you can't just Google how many segments. That's not going to help you. My guess is 28. Anyway, where that point on the map. 33 segments, 477 miles, 33 segments. The last time we were there, we did segments 1 through 6. We skipped segment 7. So the top of that red area, that starts segment 8.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay. By the way, I just want to shout out so far 2 different people in the chat.
Bourbon is so good.
I know. So I want to shout out Mad Hippie's Life.
Yeah, they gave us a lot of good info.
And then also Girl Plus Dog Adventures.
Is she in the chat?
She's in the chat.
When she finishes, she's coming on the podcast.
She's from Durango. She's in Durango right now.
She's in Durango right now?
Yeah.
What? Really?
That's what she said.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
But thank you for saying 567 of total trails.
Oh, because the Collegiate Loop.
Yeah.
The Collegiate Loop. There's a loop in the Colorado Trail, and most people pick a side, and the whole loop would include 570 miles. That makes sense. All right. So the top of that red line, and a lot of people, I have to say this, because a lot of people listen to the audio of this, and if you're listening to the audio, head over to YouTube, and you can see the map on the screen and see what we're talking about. Also, if you're listening to the audio, check out the YouTube channel. Yeah. There's a lot of people that just find the podcast. Anyway.
And also, you need to rate us.
Rate us on iTunes, people. We got like 120 reviews. Anyway, the top of that red on the screen is the start of segment 8. It starts at Copper Mountain. We skipped segment 7. I will talk about why we did segments 8 through 10. Which totals about 55 miles, why we did that specifically. So couple reasons. One, we did kind of want to start a little bit by where we left off. So 2 years ago, we hiked 1 through 6, and that ends in the town of Breckenridge, which you can see on the map. It's like right in here. And here's the deal. We wanted to end at a 14er. So we chose Mount Elbert, and we'll get there. So we kind of picked where we wanted to end, and they're like, okay, we have 5 days. We don't want to kill ourselves. And I want to get into this later, but we did do some aggressive mileage. So we kind of we said we want to stop here and hike Mount Elbert on the last day. And then we just kind of backtracked. We're like, okay, 50 to 60 miles in 4 nights, 5 days. So that's how we ended up starting at segment 8. We didn't just randomly skip 7 for no reason. It was just kind of logistics So what we were fortunate enough to be able to do, because Scott has family out there, was we dropped a car off at the end here and then got dropped off here at the beginning. So we hiked in Thursday morning. So what we did was we flew in late Wednesday night. So Columbus, there's a direct flight like every night to Denver. We flew in. It was actually worked out really perfectly. We left here at 7 p.m. and we landed in Denver at like 8:30 p.m. because of the time change. So Wednesday night, we stayed up in Evergreen, Colorado Wednesday night. And then Thursday morning, we got up at 6 a.m. and got in. And I want to finish talking about the trip because that was an aggressive way to start. We went from sea level to like 9,000 feet in the course of like 12 hours.
More than that.
Yeah, well, no. We started at 9,000 feet.
Oh, right.
We started hiking at 9,000 feet.
Yeah.
Anyway, high level, that was the trip. Segments 8, 9, 10, and then summiting Mount Elbert, which is the highest peak in Colorado and the second highest peak in the lower 48 at like 14,400. So we were out there in Colorado and we wanted to do a 14er. And there's a couple right here. There's Mount Massive and there's Mount Elbert. And we picked Mount Elbert just... I don't know. Was there a reason why we picked that one?
Second highest.
Yeah. We were going to do... Anyway, so that was the trip. 3 segments, 55 miles... with an extra 50 miles with another 10 miles of Mount Elbert going up and back.
Yeah.
So, and we did it in 4 nights, 5 days, Thursday to Monday, right?
Yeah. We came out Monday.
So the first topic of discussion is AMS.
Oh,
first off, I'd never heard
altitude mountain sickness.
No, acute mountain sickness. I like altitude mountain sickness. So.
Close.
So here's what happened. The first day, and this will be in the video. Actually, it's done very tastefully in the trip video.
Yeah.
Old Bryce had some issues with the altitude. And for reference, Bryce came with us 2 years ago to Colorado, where we were at.
We started out like 7.
We started, so we Denver's obviously lower, so we hiked in at like 5,800 actually, and we made our way to 1011. This trip, we were basically between 10.5 and 12.5 the whole time. Yeah. So a little bit higher. The Bryce got hit real hard by the altitude the first day, and I'll just be honest, and he will admit this too. He kind of struggled with the altitude the entire trip.
Yeah.
Which was not something I was expecting. And we can kind of have a conversation about this because Scott was, everyone says like altitude sickness can hit anyone, any given time, regardless of anything, which is kind of interesting. But I will say you and I have been at this altitude probably 100 times, from skiing. Mm-hmm. And you and I have never once had any altitude stuff ever, right?
No, but definitely day one, I could feel it.
Yeah, there's a difference between feeling a little winded and having
like what Bryce went
and we'll kind of describe it. So, like I said, we got dropped off at the trailhead at about 9,300 ish feet, and the first day. So the one thing we did was the first day was really aggressive for us. We did 12 miles, and we did about 3,000 feet of climbing on the first day, which is like super aggressive in general for a first day for a hike for us. But then throw in the fact that we live at 900 feet above sea level, and literally in the course of 12 hours going from 900 to 9,000. That was a little bit too aggressive. Anyway, what happened was we started climbing up, and he was like, he was feeling fine at first.
We had 2 passes to do on day 1 too, over 12,000 feet.
They were both over 12,000 feet. And basically once we got up into like 9 or 10, now another thing I'm going to say is this: 2 weeks, either 2 or 3 weeks prior to this trip, Bryce ran a 100-mile race.
Yeah.
So Bryce is in shape.
Yeah, he's in damn good shape.
The other thing old Bryce was crushing beers on the way up. I mean, he had at least one,
No,
if
we
not.
we had a past beer.
I have footage. He had a beer when we stopped for lunch. So
I remember he didn't want to carry that weight around.
So Bryce crushed multiple beers. I think that didn't help with the hydration status. Anyway, at about 10,000, he started making some comments, and this will all be in the video. About 10,000 feet, he was like talking about how he was like a little nauseous and feeling lightheaded. And then throughout the day, he did the first pass fine, but in between the first and the second pass, at probably like 3 p.m., he was getting really lightheaded, and it was at the back of the group. And Bryce is a really solid hiker, so that's not like him. And then by the time we got to camp the first night, it was real bad.
Yeah.
He couldn't eat. He just couldn't eat. He got to camp. We got to camp at like 6, and he just immediately went in his tent and went to bed, and we didn't see him for the rest of the night. And we were basically trying to force him. We're like, dude, you got to eat. I mean, 12 miles.
Yeah, we were giving
3,000 feet of climbing.
We were giving him tons of electrolytes.
Yeah, we were basically like forcing noon tablets in his water. And did he have some salt pills?
Yeah, he took some salt pills. I don't think it was like, I think he was, I mean, obviously being dehydrated would make it 10 times worse, but I mean, I think he was hydrated. It's just,
yeah, it wasn't purely a dehydration thing. No, for sure. But I've never been with someone who's gotten it.
Yeah.
Have you?
No.
So it was very interesting for me to see, because I'm like, oh shit, this is what can happen to people. Because he readily admits in the video, and he'll admit too, he wanted to tap out after that first night. There was just no physical way he could. Yeah. we were in the mountains at 12,000 feet. There's no way to get out of there.
Yeah.
But basically what happened was at 3 a.m. I like randomly woke up, and at 3 a.m. he was finally like a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And then he was able to eat breakfast the next morning. And that's when he was like, dude, if I could have tapped, I would have. I've never seen someone like that. And Bryce is, he ran 100 miles like weeks before this. Like, he's in good shape. He was struggling. So it was really weird to see. And I mean, not scary. It was never to a point. He didn't start like throwing up. I feel like that's when I'd be like, oh shit.
Yeah, no, he just was just physically drained.
Yeah, I mean, he got to camp and effectively fell asleep sitting in his camp chair.
Yeah, we woke him up and we were trying to get him to eat, but at least we got him to like hydrate.
He wouldn't eat. No, he would not eat that night. So we just forced liquids into him. And then I'll be honest with you, he was good the next day, but he battled the elevation the entire trip.
Yeah.
I mean, he like headaches, lightheadedness, the entire trip. So I'd never seen that before. I thought maybe it would go away. I mean, it got much better the next morning. I mean, to the point where he was fine to hike. It wasn't like a serious thing, but he didn't feel great.
Yeah. He got up the next day and he's like, wow. He's like, I feel like a million times better. And he's like, that was rough.
Yeah. I mean, when he was like, I would have tapped if I could have. And then I started laughing. It's like, well, you can't. I mean, what are you going to do? You got to hike at least 10 miles to the next like segment start where there's a road, and then you hitch. I don't know. There's no Uber out there.
Yeah. And then we made him go up a 14er.
Yeah. So, he did really good on the 14er. No, he was fine by the end of the trip.
Leader of the pack.
I actually, and I felt like a dick saying this, but I felt great the first day. I mean, I felt fantastic. Some of it is like a natural high of being in the Rockies and being on a backpacking trip. And it's like so much prettier than anything we do. So you're just like, you have like a natural high there. So I felt great. I mean, I felt winded, obviously. Yeah. And we can talk a little bit about the strategy. My strategy at altitude is one, I literally drink twice as much water as I normally do, which I think really helps. And then eat more, and then I'll take some ibuprofen if I start to get a headache. But I really didn't take I didn't really take any ibuprofen this trip, which is a really change of pace for me.
Yeah, what was weird is that whenever we stopped, this is just day one. After day one, I was fine. But whenever we stopped on day one, we'd take a break, and then we'd get going again. When we got going, I felt like really tired.
Andy also hiked real fast. Andy hiked way faster than any of us. So that might have been why.
No, it was like, it wasn't like it wasn't like I'm like physically exhausted. It was kind of like a little bit of like, I don't want to call it lightheaded, but it was definitely altitude related.
Yeah, I mean, I got headaches, like minor, but you know, I just take it easy up the climbs, drink a ton of water, eat, breathe, whatever. So that was, if we go back to the map here, basically the first day was kind of this chunk right here, up through 2 passes.
I'll tell you what, it's crazy that we did that on the first day, but what a beautiful section that was.
Yeah, segment 8.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
So what is really cool for us, you know, coming from the Midwest where you're in a green tunnel, is when, you know, between 11 and 12,000 feet, the trees start to thin out. And then when you're at 11, 5, 12, there's no trees. Yeah, so you're totally exposed. You're in like a total alpine zone, and it's way different. It's super windy. You got sun beating down on you. There's rocks everywhere. There's different types of animals. And that is something very cool for us, and something we don't like. It's almost Dolly Sods-ish. I mean, Dolly Sods, to give it credit, does feel kind of like that.
It's artificial though.
It is artificial, but it's like it feels like an alpine zone. But that's the cool thing about the CT is like you go into these passes in these like northern zones where there's no trees, and it's a very surreal landscape. The video will be really good that we shot. We got some really good drone footage, and like you'll be able to see kind of like how vast and open it is. But the first day was very epic.
I would say probably over half of the first day, half to 3/4 of the day was in the alpine zone.
Yeah, so we hiked in at 9,000, and it was basically an 8 or 9 mile climb up to 12,000, and the last 2 or 3 miles going from like 11 to 12. And then 12 back down.
And then, like at the end of the first day, we got into camp. I mean, it was the first tree line coming down.
Yeah. Yeah. So we go up to 12,000, we do 2 passes, and then we were just dipping down. It was like 6 p.m. Bryce is dying. I'm like, we've got to find a campsite. Yeah. And it was a pretty crappy campsite, to be honest with you. The first night was the worst campsite. So the second day, we finished segment 8, so kind of this area right here. Segment 8 was long. Segment 8 was like 20 or 30 miles. The second day was when we did 12. So another thing that happened was
this when we had to shorten the day?
Yeah. So basically we wake up on the second day, the morning of the second day, and we were like, okay, that looks like on Gut Hook, it looks like there's a really good camping area.
We were trying to do 14 or 15 miles.
It's like 15 miles away, and that's when.
And by the way, shout out to Girl Plus Dog Adventures because she helped us out with this.
So that's when people started telling us, people were DMing us on Instagram, and as well as on the Gut Hook app, which is great. People leave comments. And that's when we were told that there's basically like an 8 or 9 mile section of segment 9, which we were going into, where I was referring to it as a mosquito hellscape, where like the mosquitoes were so bad, like people were just hiking through it. Like it was really difficult to camp. And part of it, I think, is just the time of the year. It was really wet. Yeah. Usually you don't have to worry about mosquitoes there, really.
Yeah, and we had originally planned to camp in the middle of all that. And
so yeah, if we were to do 15 miles, we literally would be camping in the middle of this like ridiculous mosquito zone. And the comments on the Gut Hook app were hilarious. I mean, people were like, you're going to get to camp, you're going to filter water, and you're immediately going to get in your tent because the mosquitoes were so bad. And we're like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So what we did the second day was we camped like right outside the mosquito zone in a great campsite.
Yeah.
Like a huge, wide open, in the pines campsite to like be like on the border, basically right before segment 9 starts.
Yeah, and there was a water issue too. So we
had to do dry camp, which always sucks.
Yeah, there was a water issue, so it was like exactly at 12 miles. That was when you were going to be able to camp, and any farther you're in this supposed mosquito zone. And I'm not hauling water. I'm not hauling a bunch of water through the zone either. That's what we kind of all made.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, basically it was like, okay, we can either do 15 miles today and 15 miles tomorrow, or it's like 14 miles today and 14 miles tomorrow, or we can do 12 miles today and 16 miles tomorrow. And that's what we ended up doing.
It's closer to 17.
Yeah, it was actually ended up being closer to 17. So we get up the morning of day 3 and we're like, oh, we're getting ready for the mosquitoes. So like Andy and I have done this. We've done this in Pictured Rocks. So if people are listening or watching this, you've never had to do the mosquito stuff.
Oh God.
It's terrible. We did it in Pictured Rocks, where you basically are walking through the woods and you just have like a swarm of mosquitoes following you. And basically you have to go almost 4 miles an hour to walk them, and you can't stop. So our strategy when we do this is, head net, of course. If the weather permits you and it's not super hot, long sleeves, and then just deet up like crazy and just don't stop. So we're like, okay, we got to do 17 miles. We got this 9-mile stretch of mosquito landscape. So we got all basically we woke up super early. We got all deeted up and had our head nets ready, and the mosquitoes were fine.
There was nothing there.
No, they were there.
They were there.
They were definitely there.
But it wasn't
But we had missed the hatch or whatever. They were there, and you had to use bug spray. But you didn't need a head net, which was nice. Now, when we stopped for lunch in there, if you didn't have bug spray on, you were getting bit.
Yeah.
But bug spray was enough to. So I don't know. I think what happened was that before we had gone to Colorado, 3 days before, there was a massive rain that came through, and that's going to brood mosquitoes. And it rained a little bit on trail, but I think we hit it the right time of day. It was warm. It was sunny, where the mosquitoes were bad, but it was never we had to do a head net and really deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it wasn't.
And then the coolest thing was, it's fine. See, look up there. It's fine.
Oh,
it's my computer. You got to switch Wi-Fi networks. The coolest thing is when we came out of the mosquito landscape, we got into an area called the Holy Cross Wilderness.
Yeah.
Which was really cool.
It was just a small part of it. But
that was in segment 9.
What was it, 6 or 7 miles?
So the Holy Cross Wilderness, you can actually see it on the map. Maybe if I squint really hard, it's on the map. It's like a massive chunk of wilderness, and the CT just goes through it. Here, give me this. The CT just goes through it for 5 or 6 miles, but it is really pretty.
Yeah.
There's a whole backstory on why it's called the Holy Cross Wilderness. You got to hike up into it. You got to hike up to 10, 11,000 feet, but it's super exposed, really jagged, really jaggedy.
Yeah. It was pine, kind of open pine and rocks and boulders. It's really cool. And lakes.
Yeah. And some alpine lakes. The Holy Cross, aside from this, the Holy Cross Wilderness, it looked really cool.
Yeah.
So that was day 3. We did 17 miles. Every day we did about 3,000 feet of climbing, other than the 14er, which is obviously way more than that. We'll get there. But 17 miles was a lot.
Yeah.
And we got to camp pretty exhausted. But not it wasn't terrible. By the third day, we were kind of acclimated. And I'm trying to remember where we camped at the end of that 17-mile day.
Yeah, I can't remember. Oh, that was by the.
That was
by the river.
Yeah, so this was pretty cool. So another thing to kind of mention is it seemed and we kind of figured this out, every other person we talked to out there was through hiking.
Yeah, we were in the middle of the
we were in the middle of the CT through hiking bubble, which was actually really cool. We shared camp that night with a bunch of through hikers, and stopping for lunch, and a couple of through hikers at the start of that segment, because they were hitching into Leadville. They were super nice. And they took our trash for us.
Yeah, how cool is that?
And everyone just assumed we were through hikers. We obviously were not, but it was really cool to be surrounded by through hikers, because you do learn a lot, especially seeing how they set up and break down camp and their routine. You kind of learn a lot, and you can get a good sense of the trail. So that night. So this was night number 3. We did 17 miles, and we shared camp with 3 through hikers. And what had happened was, I did not plan for rain really for this trip. No. You always you're going to Colorado, it never rains.
It rains maybe maybe like 10 minutes in the afternoon, like a very light
So we
drizzle.
got to camp at like 6:30 and it started pouring. And luckily we got all of our tents set up. We had a beautiful campsite on this creek. We got all our tents set up and then it rained for like an hour and a half straight.
Poured.
Which never happens. And what happened was over that hour and a half, there were through hikers coming through and they were just looking for places to set up. And we had a really good campsite. And it's the only time it's legit to camp with somebody else is if you're a through hiker and it's raining. Because that's the cardinal sin Andy and I call. It's like if you have a great tent set, you have 3 or 4 tents set up, everyone's having a good time. And then like random people you don't know set their tents up like 2 feet away from you.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
It is, but it's acceptable
it's
for
definitely acceptable if you're through hiking. And honestly, if it's just pouring down rain in general, like it's totally acceptable to do that. If you just need to get camp set up, like we were not bothered whatsoever. And they were really cool.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I went into my tent. So it starts pouring down rain. I get into the Altiplex and then it stops raining an hour and a half later and I pop out and there's like 4 tents set up like all around us. I was like, who are these people? But it was actually a really cool night. We hung out with one of them, Jen, trail name Moana.
That's right.
She was pretty cool. And so then the next morning, day 4, it was gorgeous. So then we're down into this area right here.
I'm trying to picture what day 4 was like.
Day 4 was, remember we hiked up to that.
It was 2 big climbs.
2 big climbs and we hiked up to that open area with the power lines.
Yes. Yeah.
So every day it's like you wake up, you look at the Gunhook app and you're like, oh, well, how many climbs do I have today? You're like, every day is like 3,000 feet of climbing. It's either like one 2,000 foot climb and some random stuff, or it's like 2 1,500 foot climbs and then nothing else. Mm-hmm. So this day was 2 1,000 foot climbs with another 1,000 feet of elevation, like going kind of in between.
Yeah.
Beautiful day. So this was the end of segment 9 or beginning of segment 10.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of segment 10. We did basically 3 segments. Segment 8 was long. It was like 20, 25 miles. Segment 9 was like 10 or 15 miles. Then we did some of segment 10. And then what we did, so this is kind of a good story. So right down here at the end of day 4, so night 4, we camped right at the base of the Mount Elbert trailhead. So Mount Elbert's a 14er. There's 2 or 3 different routes going up it. And it was really funny the day before. So this whole day hiking, we get a view of Mount Elbert.
And we're like,
oh shit.
Are we
it's high, man. I mean, it's to the point where like half of the mountain is above the tree line.
I know.
So you see it and you see the trees end and there's still like an entire environment above that. And we're like, no way, there's no way that's Mount Elbert. And we got to the base of it and we're like, this is our campsite. We're like, oh shit, this is it. So we camped right, we'll kind of zoom in. So there's Mount Massive Wilderness. So that's another 14er. And you can see the Holy Cross Wilderness is up in here somewhere. Or I think it's right here. I can't really read. So anyway, we crossed this river and we camped right here. And then we're going to talk about the next day. It took us about 8 hours round trip. 4.75 up to Elbert and then 4.75 back down. And I do want to talk about that experience because that's unlike something I've ever done.
Yeah, and we actually started climbing at like 6:30 a.m. We started on the trail at 6:30 a.m.
Yeah, by 6:30, if not earlier.
Yeah. So
this was a Monday.
Yeah.
So the plan was, so this is a very popular peak to climb because it's the highest point in the Rockies, and it's a grade 1, which means it's a trail. It's a hiking trail. Yeah. I mean, it's not easy.
No, not at all.
I mean, 4,200 feet of climbing in 4.75 miles. So you're climbing almost 1,000 feet a mile. Mm-hmm. And to give you reference,
it's about an hour a mile up too.
Yeah. So a normal day on the Colorado Trail, hiking 3,000 feet over 15 miles is, 400 feet of climbing a mile. And this is almost 1,000 feet of climbing a mile. So it's absurdly steep. And it's just, it's a whole different way of hiking because you're just 1 foot after the other. You're just slogging it uphill, like endless uphill. Normally, like a backpacking climb, you can kind of see the top. You're like, oh, there's an end. But no, it's like it's 6:30 a.m. I'm literally going to walk uphill for the next 4.5 hours.
And there's 3 false summits too.
Yeah. So a false summit, it means like you can see the top, yay! And you get to the top, and you're like, oh, there's more, and there's 3 of those, which at least we knew.
Yeah.
At least, so like I was like, oh, is that the top? And like, no. And then you get up there, and like, oh, is that the top? And you're like, no. And then you get up there, and you're like, oh, is that the top? And you're like, no. And then you get up to the next one, and like, oh, is that the top? And you're like, yeah, that's the top. So kind of like plays with you mentally.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about Elbert too is probably only about a quarter of the climb was in the woods.
Yeah. So that was very cool. So like I said, the trees between like 11 and 12,000 feet, but much more towards 11. The trees start to taper off, and you have to go to 14.5, right? So the vast majority of the climb, you're exposed the whole time. And it was, I mean, not to encourage more people to do this. So first off, I couldn't imagine, here, give me this. I couldn't imagine doing that on a weekend. So we did it on a Monday.
It'd be a line.
And there were still tons of people there. So I could not fathom doing that on a weekend. Like we were warned doing it on a weekend. Like it's like lines of people going up, and there were almost lines of people doing it on a Monday. So first piece of advice, don't do it on a weekend if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Second piece of advice is, and what we did, is get up there as early as you can. Because first off, a couple reasons. One, it gets hot up there. 2, you avoid some of the crowds doing that. And 3, what can happen on these mountains, and the dangerous aspect to this is these lightning storms and hailstorms can roll in super fast. And if you're above 13,000, I mean, there's no cover. There's none.
Yeah, and everybody says like the Colorado like mid-afternoon storms. That's a common thing. So
luckily for us, and we actually shot an entire video that is just like, there'll be a separate video that will be this 14er because it was such a cool experience. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
I mean, it was beautiful. Being up that high, like you think, oh, 14er is cool, but like you're so high, you get a complete panorama view of like Leadville and all the mountains and all the valleys, and it like not a cloud in sight. And it was
amazing.
It was amazing. It was breathtaking. So I couldn't recommend doing that enough.
Yeah.
Just a lot of people. And like I said, it's not easy.
No, and just give yourself time.
Yeah. Just one. I mean, there are points where we call it the crawl, where you're just like foot, step, foot, step, foot, step. When it's so steep and rocky and you're doing that for hours on end, you can't like hike it. And what we did was we camped at the base, and we just filled our packs with just the stuff we needed for the hike. We didn't haul all of our backpacking gear up there.
Nope.
That was kind of part of the strategy. So we probably had 5 to 10 pound packs.
If that.
And that made a huge difference. The other thing about these 14ers is there's no water.
Yeah.
And it takes you about 4.5 hours to go up and about 2 to 2.5 to come down. Mm-hmm. So you're gone for 7 or 8 hours. And you got to take a ton of water.
Yeah.
That's one thing I didn't realize. Like, you're physically exerting yourself for 7 hours. So we each took, I don't know, between 2.5 liters of water.
Yeah, I had 2 liters, and I was
dry.
I was dry when I got down.
I was totally dry by the time I got down. But it was the Mount Elbert 14er, and if you're hiking the Colorado Trail, the Colorado Trail literally goes, and here's the Elbert Trail shooting off of it. Yep. So I would recommend doing it if you have the time. Now, something, we joked about is we actually, before this trip started, there's a Mountain Massive is right here, which is another 14er right off the CT. We're like, maybe we'll do 2. And we're like, we'll just see how we're feeling, because we were camped at the bottom of Mount Elbert. So in theory, we could do 1 14er. And if we were just absolutely wrecked, we wouldn't do the second one.
Yeah.
There was not a chance in hell we were doing 2 of these things.
Nope.
Literally, luckily,
Coming back down, my knees were jello by the end.
Yeah, going up sucks. And some people disagree with me, but going up definitely sucks more than going down. But going down sucks.
Yeah, it does.
2.5 hours of just knee, trekking pole. In your wrists, it does suck. Going downhill on end. And like your quads, by the time you get down, are just totally burned, and your knees too. But some of the strategy, and this I think paid off, was we did this the last day. Yeah. So like we were in hiking mode, and we were as acclimated as you can be after being in Colorado for 5 or 6 days. There's no way in hell we would have been able to do that at the beginning of the trip.
Oh God, we would have passed.
There is no way in hell we would have been able to do 2 of these without just destroying ourselves. I don't know. Bryce wouldn't have survived.
We'd have to do like a 6-mile day in between or something.
And Bryce did fine. Bryce did good on the 14er.
Yeah.
He was not like, he got a little lightheaded, but it wasn't like, the first day. So that was the trip. 50 miles on the Colorado Trail, going segments 8 to here, we'll zoom out here. Yeah, go segments 8 through 10, and then a little Mount Elbert 10-mile pop off there at the end. And then we hiked out, obviously.
And Scott and I actually did 63 total miles because we went to the car and got beer.
So the last night, obviously we I'll kind of zoom in. So we hiked, we the last night, so this red squiggly line is all the Mount Elbert stuff. And then so you can't see it. There's a little road. Oh no. There's a little road that sneaks out, and we parked a car a mile from our campsite the last night. And the strategy there was we could stash a bunch of stuff in the car, and we played flip the coin for who are the poor souls that had to do the 2-mile round trip slog to the car to get the beer, and Andy and Scott lost that bet. Yeah. So
because we wanted Summit beers.
And we were hiked by this creek the last night, so we wanted some beers to put in the creek at night. And I will say, I wasn't the one who got it, but at the end of 5 days of backpacking, even the mildly cold beers just taste incredible.
Yes, they do.
So the last night, Andy and Scott made the sacrifice. And Bryce and I filtered your water, and I hung the worst bear line. I was like, what chores can we do while you go get beer? So Andy technically did, the actual trip mileage was 61 miles. So Andy did 63. So that was the next thing I wanted to bring up. So we did 61 miles and about 15,000 feet of elevation in 4 nights, 5 days. That was too much.
That's a lot for us.
It wasn't too much. It wasn't too much. Anything more would have been too much. Doing 12 miles the first day, doing 12 miles and 3,000 feet of climbing, like literally 12 hours after you've been in Columbus, Ohio, that was a bit aggressive.
That was too aggressive, yeah.
And it showed in destroying Bryce. And like in hindsight, maybe would have done a little less.
But it was such a cool segment. But maybe do like 5 or 6 miles before going above tree line and camping.
Yeah, get dropped off further up the trail.
Or something like that. Or just do like 4 or 5 miles the first day.
That's kind of the sweet spot for us, is even if you're not at elevation the first day, do like 5 to 6 miles.
Yeah.
Do 3 hours of hiking,
and
2-3 hours of hiking.
Drill instructor Scott, 12 miles.
So 12 miles the first day and 3,000 feet of climbing and 2 passes was hard and too much. And it got Bryce a little bit. So the first kind of feedback is probably would have done a little bit less mileage, but having said that, like we're all fine, no injuries, like felt fine.
Yeah, felt fine. The worst part of it all for me, or the hardest part of it all for me, was coming down Elbert.
And there were some other downhills during that trip.
Yeah.
Like 3-4 mile stretches where you're just coming downhill, and I do not like that at all.
Yeah, I hate climbing, and definitely going downhill is
It's better.
It's better than climbing, but my God, 2.5 hours of just steep downhill sucks.
And I don't know how people don't do it. Half the people didn't have trekking poles. I don't understand how people do that. It's got to crush your knees. The The second kind of reflection, and we just talked about, we'll kind of gloss past it, is it was stupid to even consider doing 2 14ers. The third thing I kind of want to talk about was and it was fine because we got a little lucky because it rained at camp, but I did not pack for rain.
Well, I mean, what else would you change? You had a rain jacket.
I brought Kroger bags. I did not have.
Haven't you learned your lesson yet?
The Kroger bags were fine. I did not have my sleeping bag. I had my sleeping bag in a sil nylon sack. I did not have my sleeping bag in a
dry bag.
Dry bag. So what I did was before I left, I was like, well, maybe it'll rain. I brought some like grocery bags, and so it rained twice. Once it rained that night we talked about at camp, but there was also another morning where it rained in the morning and a little bit while we hiked. So I just used those grocery bags to put my quilt in.
But I mean, like outside of that big rain, which we were lucky enough to be set up in, so we're good there. Like,
but it probably rained for 5 or 6 hours collectively while we were there.
Yeah.
And I was not like, we were in Colorado for 8 days in 2018 and not a drop of rain.
I know.
So I was not expecting rain. Maybe that's a thing of mid-July versus end of August, maybe. But like I was going back and thinking about kind of like the trip takeaways, and I was just like, and then we were everyone says when it rains in Colorado, it rains for like 10 minutes. False. False. Both times it rained for like 1 to 3 hours each time. You know what
though? Like, I'm so glad it rained out there. It's like the whole West scares the crap out of me with fires.
Yeah. So the other thing was and this kind of piggybacks on the rain comment, is everything was really green and lush. Yeah. And I'm not used to that in Colorado. I was expecting it to be super dry, and it certainly was in areas. Mm-hmm. This kind of goes with the mosquitoes, but it was wet. I mean, I woke up the first morning with a layer of condensation on my tent, and I was not expecting that whatsoever. I mean, I was expecting bone dry the entire trip. So I don't know. I would love it if people in the comments, I think maybe that's a factor of going in July. Maybe that's a little bit of the wetter season. But I was not expecting that. The other thing I was not expecting, and this is a good thing, and maybe this plays into the time of year, was the water availability for these 50 miles, 60 miles,
phenomenal,
was very good. And much better. I mean, when we did the first Colorado Trail trip, we resupplied water at a fire station. I mean, we would go 10 miles plus without water. And this, I mean, we would go 10 miles and hit 4 or 5 like really well flowing water sources.
Yeah, most of the time on this trip we were carrying like 1 liter to 1.5 liters. Sometimes if we knew we had a big climb with little water, we'd take 2 liters, but it was nice being able to only have to carry like 1 liter.
So I don't know if that's because it's earlier in the season, the snow melt is feeding the stream runoffs.
It was wet too.
But it was raining, it was wet, it was lush, it was green. It was not what I was expecting at all. So
that was nice.
Kind of a little curveball.
Yeah, that was we commented on that a lot. It was like, wow, the water availability so much different.
Yeah, so much better. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
So another thing, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about this, but Andy and I were really using this trip as a shakedown for the Tahoe trip, and we're going to do a podcast setting up that trip. That trip is coming up in about 6, 7, 8 weeks. And that will be a much bigger, we're doing way more mileage, way more nights, way more days on the Tahoe Rim Trail. So we kind of use this as a shakedown. And I'll be honest with you, my pack, we weighed our packs. You'll see this in the video.
Oh, it was bad.
Fully loaded up with, 2 liters of water, 5 days of food.
Plus day one, we had a few beers.
We had cans of beer. My pack was 35, 36 pounds.
Mine was 29.
And that's the heaviest pack I've ever had by like 5 pounds. Well, that's the heaviest pack I've had in the ultralight days. We had 40-pound packs back in the day, and that was normal. But there's several pieces. I've already been selling some. I'm going to shave at least. I am not going to be over 26, 27 pounds in Tahoe.
With water, right?
With water.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I'll probably be at like 22,
35 pounds the first day. I mean, it was fine. I mean, we're bigger guys. It wasn't like crazy bad, but it was the heaviest pack I've had in a long time.
And you're talking day one, 12 miles, over 12,000 feet of elevation, 2 passes, all above the alpine zone, blaring sun.
Yeah. But one thing I will say is I continue to be impressed by the Arc Haul and its ability to carry weight comfortably.
It's the Swiss Army knife of packs.
35 pounds is heavy, but that pack held it fine.
Yeah.
Like no issues whatsoever. But I took way too much stuff on that trip. And part of that was, I mean, I carried almost 5 pounds of camera gear, and that's just not happening on Tahoe. I'm losing the tripod. I got a lighter lens. Drone's still coming though. Got some sick drone shots. But yeah, I carried 4 to 5 pounds of camera gear plus, 5, and I didn't eat all my food. I took way too much food. I'm going to slim down. And part of it is it'll be warmer in Tahoe so we can lose some of that weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, my pack was way too heavy.
I'm definitely not taking. Well, I shouldn't say that. I won't be carrying beer in Tahoe. Maybe
I'll be carrying beer the first night.
Yeah, first night.
Yeah,
maybe.
first night for sure.
But I'm trying to get everything in my light AF pack. But we have a resupply in Tahoe, so we only have to carry 3 to 4 days of food at a time.
Right. So I'll be taking the lead AF pack to Tahoe. But part of the reflection on this trip was I just took way too much stuff.
You know what else was really weird about this trip too?
What?
The temps were a lot warmer than I expected.
Yeah. So a good point. So checking the weather going in, we were checking weather in Leadville, which is right about 10,000 feet. And we were hiking between 11 and 13 the whole time. So basically take 10,000 feet and subtract 10 degrees from the temperature kind of. So we were prepared I was prepared to set up to go down to freezing. And the first night we had frost, but many of the nights, the coldest it got was like upper 40s. And I'll be honest with you, I was too hot.
Yeah, I was sweating.
I brought a 20-degree setup because we were prepared for 32, 33, 34 degrees. That's what we thought it would be like. And it really, other than the first night, the coldest it got was like upper 40s. Yeah. And in a 20-degree setup, you're sweating.
Yeah.
So, and there's nothing you can do about that, right? You look at the weather, you make some judgment calls. You definitely, in this sort of environment, you have to err on being more cautious.
Yeah, because it gets cold.
And you don't want to be up there and be freezing. No. So that was part of the weight issue. Was we had really cold setups, and it just didn't get to be that cold. But I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah.
The weather was, the lows in Leadville were 40, 41 degrees. So we're like, okay, it's going to be 30 to 35 degrees up in the mountains. And it other than the first night, it was not. It was 48, 49 degrees, which was awesome, by the way. Fantastic. But was not prepared to be that warm. But what can you do about it?
So there's a question in the chat. This is interesting. This is from Big Chief 77. Is that Big Chief from the AT?
That'd be great. So we met a dude on the AT
through hiking,
and his name was Big Chief.
Is that you?
And if it's you, this is Grayson Highlands.
We were on that bald.
Yeah. Tell us if it was.
But the question was, what's the average cost to do a trip like this?
Great question. Let's outline it.
Airfare $300.
Less than that. So we got lucky. Columbus to Denver, we got round trip nonstop flights on Southwest for like $250, $280 a person. Just a little
good.
No?
Yeah.
That's atypically cheap. And then we also got insanely lucky in that our buddy Scott, his family has some lodging out there and a car out there. So we didn't have to pay for lodging or transportation to the trail. So that alone saves you a couple $100. So other than the flight, and I'm going to be honest, I dehydrated a lot of my food.
Yeah, I did too.
We're probably talking. So for us for this trip, way less than $500 a person. Way less. Flight was $280. You're not spending.
Well, we bought meals.
Yeah, so we had a good post hike meal. Let's say $500 a person for this trip.
Yeah, say $500.
Now, if you're not lucky like us and you got to do lodging and cars, maybe add another like $250 to that. Mm-hmm. So maybe $500 to $700 to do 6 days in Colorado.
You can do it for cheaper too, because you could fly in and just go straight to the trailhead, like get transportation.
That's going to be expensive to get out to where we got to.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be $100 a person at least.
Go to segment 1, start there.
Yeah, but nobody wants to do that. Segment 1 sucks. But great question. Our price for this was between like $300 and $500 a person, but that we just got lucky. But I would say $500 to $750 total, depending on like how many nights you want to stay. I will say, we were kind of talking one thing, if you can do that, and Bryce especially, if you have the ability to do this, and obviously it's going to inflate your trip costs, if you can get out there a day or two before you start hiking, will really be helpful.
John Long said you forgot the $80 for yet another Melanzana in Leadville. We were in Leadville.
John, we went to Leadville and we did not go to Melanzana. So first off there, Melanzana right now is only doing store appointments. And I'll be honest with you, Andy and I, between the two of us, we've got like 8 or 9 of these melis now. So we're mellied out. But we drove right past Melanzana. It's like by appointment only. So if you're going to Leadville trying to go to Melanzana, you got to go in and get an appointment for like a week in advance. Yeah. But that's funny. But if you haven't been out there, you should budget $80 to go get a meli.
Yeah, we've got plenty of them.
I would say you should do that. It's worth having one of them.
Yeah, it's not the Big Chief from the AT.
It's not. Different Big Chief. Oh, interesting. Yeah, because I saw his name was Big Chief 77, right? Yeah. And so I'm assuming Big Chief 77 was born in 1977, and this dude we saw was older than that.
Yeah.
Great question, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leadville is a really cool town. We stopped there. So we can describe our post trip meal. So we got off the trail in Leadville. There is a saloon that it's like super famous. It's where like, I don't know, Doc Holliday went.
Yeah.
It's like a legit cowboy saloon that they've kept. It feels like a cowboy saloon. It's very cool. It's like a historical site. So we got off the trail. We got a round of beers immediately at this saloon. It was very cool.
Yeah.
And then we got back to Evergreen where we were staying, and we just hit up a brewery and had it just slammed these huge burgers, wings,
beer,
draft beer. It was a really good post-hike meal, very satisfying.
Very, very good.
We always kind of discuss like I tend to go for burgers and cold draft beer. Or sometimes
beer.
Wings and pizza.
I like the wings and pizza post trail hike, but.
So anyway, that might inflate your trip costs if you're going to go nuts.
Yeah, if you're going to go nuts.
But I would say if you add up all the meals and all the backpacking food, I would say you and I well under $500 a person. But we didn't have to pay for lodging or transportation. So
we got lucky.
We got super lucky. And we're also same thing with our Tahoe trip because our sister lives out there. We will not be paying for lodging or transportation there either.
I know. But the airfare to Tahoe was expensive.
Airfare is crazy expensive. It's $500 a person to go out to Tahoe. So that's whenever I talk to people about backpacking, I'm like, the upfront cost is expensive. Gear's not cheap.
Yeah.
But the actual trip cost compared to like if you're not backpacking, it's $500 to go to Colorado for 6 days.
Yeah,
not bad.
No, not at all.
Even if you had to pay for lodging and transportation, $700-800 for 6 days in Colorado, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the CT, no permits you have to buy, nothing like that. So there's no like added trip cost.
No, you had to fill out a permit to go into Holy Cross.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
But we didn't stay in Holy Cross.
So I think real quick, I want to ask you, so what, if you had to do this again, maybe in terms of gear or whatever, like what would you do differently? Did you like having the hammock?
Yeah, I hammocked it. It was fine. I actually used the Chameleon too, which I haven't used.
You did not use the Banyan?
Yeah.
For weight reasons.
For weight reasons, yeah. It was fantastic. I slept great. I really enjoyed it. I was thinking about like I brought too much cold weather stuff. So
Yeah, well, it just didn't get that cold.
yeah. So I could have shaved off some weight there.
But that's not something you like. You're gonna have to bring that if
Right.
you can't just like
Right. My food loadout, which you were I don't know, those of you should watch the video where we talk about it, go through our food. My food loadout was perfect.
I brought too much food.
Yeah. I brought a little bit more than I needed, but like it was good.
And I hate bringing too much food because it's just extra weight you've had to carry the entire week and cost.
Yeah.
I brought too much food, and I did like the food I brought though. Yeah. I had some dehydrated stuff I did, which was really good. And what was your favorite meal?
I was really enjoying the buffalo chicken wraps I was making.
Andy was underwhelmed by the peak refuel. You'll see it on video.
Oh yeah. Granted, I've only had one of them, and
that's true.
And I only bought the one that everybody raves about, which is the sweet pork and rice or whatever. And everybody goes like ape crazy about that stuff. And I had it, and I was like, it's okay.
I really enjoyed the oatmeal in the morning. Did you?
Yeah, surprisingly.
Andy always rips on oatmeal.
I had a couple meals of oatmeal with protein powder, and then you just add hot water. It was good. Yeah,
and for people watching, we did release a video on our entire food loadout. And this trip is a little bit different because of the mileage and the protein needs. So we did our food a little bit differently. So it's worth watching if you're into that and like you want to. I don't know. It's worth watching because it's a little bit different than most trips.
Yeah, you gotta stop taking. Now, granted, I'm the only one that I benefit from this, so this hurts me saying this, but you should just stop carrying cheese and salami.
I don't do that on every trip.
It's a lot of weight.
I'm not bringing it to Tahoe.
Yeah, I would.
No, I'm with you. I'm not anti that. I brought a pepperoni log and cheese. I do it all the time. I just didn't eat it all. I did struggle, I think, a little bit with appetite. I don't know if that's a elevation thing.
Yeah, I definitely had to force myself.
I had to force myself to eat a few times, which is, I'm not used to that now. When I got off the trail,
no problem.
I was freaking hungry. I'm trying to think. Any other recollections?
Oh man,
any other lessons learned?
No. Well, actually, here's a lessons learned, but I was prepared for it. The O-ring on my Sawyer squeeze failed, but I had a backup.
That's right. Yeah, we always preach that.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm on a full second year of my current Sawyer squeeze, and it's still going.
Yeah. O-ring failed on it, and luckily I carried a spare.
But the O-ring, don't you just shove it back in there? Like, how's it fail?
It got like warped.
It didn't work? Like, was water pouring out?
Water was leaking
I didn't know that.
Yeah, water was leaking down the side of the filter, and that's when I was like, what the hell is going on? So a few times I could like reseat it, but then it wouldn't seat again. So
another gear related thing, Andy and I immediately bought these when we got home because we saw so many people wearing them, and even Scott and Bryce had them. And we have sun shirts, but we bought sun shirts with a full hood.
Yeah, because it's brutal.
I mean, it is, if you've never hiked out west, especially if you do stuff above tree line, it's like you're at the beach all day, but the sun is even that much stronger because you're up high in elevation. And the sun will just beat down on you for 8-9 hours a day. And it's like, you can use sunscreen and that's fine, but these lightweight sun shirts that people have, and you can get them for fishing, and Andy and I have them, but having one with the hood.
Yeah, I wore long sleeves the whole time. Like, I do have like a sun shirt, but we were those people that we went out and got the sun hoodies because Tahoe is going to be even more exposed.
Right. So Tahoe is going to be even more exposed than this. So we bought some sun shirts with hoods on them, which should be really helpful. That was something I was definitely missing.
Yeah. Big Chief said, did your meal prep help with your recovery overnight like you hoped it would?
I think so. Yeah, I think so for sure.
Lots of protein.
I think having the updated, upregulated protein intake, I think that really did help.
Yeah, I actually
although I'm so sick of crushing protein bars.
You got to get good ones, tasty ones.
I know, I'm cheap though.
I actually don't. I never was sore. Like
I was a little sore after some of the downhills.
I mean, I definitely felt like the last day coming down Elbert, like when we got to the car, like my knees felt like jello, but I was never
No, I think part of that's protein. I mean, protein does help with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, go if you're curious, go back and watch the food video. We had protein loading. I mean, we like doubled the amount of protein we normally take.
Yeah, I was 100 grams per day, which is still not enough.
It's not enough, but it's way more than you would have normally got had you not been like consciously trying to eat protein.
Yeah.
But yeah, great question. I think it really did help.
Yeah.
I think part of those. I mean, you're running this marathon with me. I mean, we're in pretty good shape. That helped a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that's about it.
Yeah. I don't know what other like lessons learned.
Colorado's beautiful.
I mean, it's just such an amazing state. It's so beautiful. Like you can't go like, yes, some of the Colorado Trail segments are better than the others, but if you can get on any of them, just do it.
But definitely go further in. Even the stuff past where we went, it definitely gets prettier the deeper you get into Colorado. So I feel like Colorado, in terms of West backpacking, is overlooked because you've got the California, PCT, Oregon, Washington area. So I feel like Colorado kind of gets overlooked, but I mean, fantastic backpacking.
Yeah.
And the Colorado Trail is beautiful and it's logistically fairly easy.
Yeah.
And even though you're doing like 3,000 feet of gain a day, usually the grade is not super steep.
This one was rougher.
Definitely these segments were steeper than the first segments for sure. But I mean, I can't speak highly enough of Colorado backpacking.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm jealous of everybody.
And something we didn't really mention in the video or now was the entire segment we did, this 55 miles, 60 miles, it was all the CDT.
Yeah, that was cool.
So the map, I'll pull it up one last time. This red line, that is all CDT. So I thought that was cool. I knew we'd be on the CDT, but I didn't think we'd be on the Continental Divide Trail the entire time. Yeah. So you're going to do, you're going to hit within like 2 months, you're going to hit the PCT and the CDT. Isn't that cool?
Wait, were we on the AT when we were in the Smokies in January?
No. Otherwise, you would have gotten it.
I thought we were going to have the Weekend Warrior.
I've done it.
Yeah, you did it last year.
I've done it. So if you know, I came up with something called the Weekend Warrior Triple Crown, and that is to set foot on the 3 main through hike trails in a calendar year. So I did that in 2019. So you're going to get 2 of the 3.
Maybe I should
go to Pennsylvania really fast. That's probably the closest way to get on the AT. But we'll hit the PCT and the CDT in like a 2-month span. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Weekend Warrior Triple Crown. I like that.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty cool thing to strive for.
Yeah.
In 365 days, set foot on all 3 of those trails. All right. So part 1 of the trip video will be out next week, I think. I got some really good footage. It's going to be a really pretty video. I encourage you all to watch it. And then I'll be honest with you guys.
So we're doing a part 1, a part 2, and then a special one just for Elbert.
Yep. But we're going to, we start just reloading for the Tahoe Rim Trail right now.
I was actually doing some food prep today. I was checking on.
How
much coffee do I have? How many bars do I have?
I'm selling on eBay the Garmin InReach, and I'm getting the Mini. I mean, we're starting right now to retool because literally 6 weeks, 7 weeks from today we'll be on it. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see some more content coming out, and the Tahoe Rim stuff will be a much more aggressive trail than what we did in Colorado. Yeah. So you'll be seeing some stuff come out about that. It's a different kind of hike. We're going to go lighter, more sun exposure, kind of different dynamics of the trail. So there'll be some stuff coming out about that. We'll probably do a podcast on an entire overview of that trip.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll be in a tent too.
And it'll be in a tent. No, I think we're going to do a whole BSing like we did for this trip. We'll do a BSing kind of setting up that trail. We'll be doing some more podcasts in between now and then, of course. We're going to get some Colorado Trail thru hikers on the podcast. And is that it?
I think that's it.
Good to be back. Hope everyone's being safe. Delta variants out there. Might be doing some more lockdown live streams. I don't know. Hopefully not.
Yeah, I hope not.
I think that's it for us, though. Happy Saturday. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
We'll be back next week, I think.
Yeah. What's that?
Next Friday?
Yeah, we could probably do next
We'll be
Friday.
back next Friday.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll be re-gearing for Tahoe. Get back into the High Sierra.
Yep.
I think that's it, everybody.
Yeah. Oh, have the fire situation. God, I hope it's not good right now.
Yeah. It's not good out in Tahoe right now.
I know.
So I haven't,
Maybe we just
what are we going to do?
go back to Colorado.
I say we go up to Oregon because we're going to be in Reno.
Yeah.
Or hit up the PCT.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got to figure that out. If last year the fires canceled everyone's TRT through hikes, so
we could grab a rental, and you're right, just drive to Oregon
or do something on the PCT because I'm going to be out there.
Yeah,
I can't reroute to Colorado.
That's right.
So I don't know. Yeah, if anyone has any good suggestions for hikes to do in the Lake Tahoe area, if wildfires come rolling in, let us know. Because that's unfortunately always something you have to plan for out there. All right. Tahoe content coming, more BSing coming, more videos coming.
Yep. Thanks everybody for posting in the chat.
Is there anything we need to?
No.
Okay.
Just a bunch of good suggestions.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for spending your Saturday with us.
Yes. Thanks for spending this Saturday with
us. All right.
us.
It's time to go prep a bunch of barbecue.